For us to believe you, I want you to concede.
You're not going to believe me because you want to find me that I done something that I didn't do to make you guys feel good.
We want to find out what happened to your brother.
Yeah, well, so do I. Why don't you go ask his daughter and Bob?
Tanya, you've grown up all your life in Toledo.
Yes.
Population?
About 300,000.
So how come you don't rib her about her Midwest accent?
Because she doesn't have one like you. Yours is horrible.
I don't know what you heard about Kelly. I think she's got a nice side. She keeps telling me that.
We're in Polk County, Oregon. For this case, I brought along Steve Spingola, who's an excellent interrogator and an expert at handling tough witnesses and suspects.
Doing good has no end. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA after a while.
It is. Feels very familiar.
Also joining us is a newcomer to the team, Tanya Ryder, whose years of experience analyzing difficult cases should be a tremendous help. I've always thought that being a girl homicide detective with all those guys has to be hard.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you have to break it up with a little estrogen. Law enforcement is male-dominated, but I held my own. I was a police officer for 26 years, a detective for 20 of those years. I like putting pieces together. I like investigating. Cold cases give you an opportunity to do all of that.
This is one of our harder cases.
It's very complex.
In the early morning of October the 4th, 2004, 56-year-old Glenn Penny was packing his truck for a trip to California to attend a settlement hearing for his late father's estate. But Glenn never showed up. He hasn't been seen since, leaving the investigators with the mystery of, is he missing or murdered? This is the first case I can think of, though, we worked where you're talking about a family feud over money to this degree.
These two brothers, they both believe that they're about not to get their fair share here.
It's either $1 million, it's $2 million.
If there was $1 million in gold coins here, where are they?
Which leads you to this whole world of characters that he knows. We're going to have to figure out who the hell is involved and where is he if he's not dead. I've made my career working on tough cases, so when I read this one, I couldn't pass up the challenge. We've got a crazy world filled with way too many suspects, missing gold coins, and a man who vanished off the face of the earth. It's like something right out of a movie.
It just comes right back to human nature. Money is just the root of all evil, and we'll see where it leads us.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
I've chosen cold cases from across the country and teamed up with the best detectives to solve them. We're more determined than ever to bring justice to these victims. Hello, hello.
Hello, Kelly.
Kelly.
John Williams.
Hi, Tanya Ryder.
Hi.
Steve Spingola.
Nice to meet you.
We're excited to see y'all.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
None of us have been to Oregon before.
This is it.
Yay.
Y'all ready to get started?
Ready?
Yeah?
Let's go.
Polk County is a rural county. There's only about 75,000 people. So when something big happens, like the Glenn Penny case, it's important to our community. And it's important to me to see this case through to the end.
How old was Glenn when this happened?
56. Glenn was an electrician.
He liked to build computers.
He was a pretty intelligent guy.
He's an animal lover. I'm an animal lover, and anybody that likes animals are good people.
I got involved in this case at the very beginning when this happened in 2004. I've never quit wondering what happened to Glenn, and we're going to try to find the answer. The case started for us when we got a call on the 4th of October from Mr. Fetter, who's the neighbor of Glenn Penny. He had been given the key to the house so that he could take care of Mr. Penny's cats while he was gone, and he felt odd that his truck's still here. Glenn Penny was supposed to be going to Oakland, California for a hearing on the estate of his father, George Penny. 2 days later, we get a call from his daughter, Christy, saying he's missing.
What alarmed her was that he didn't show up for court in California.
Okay.
We actually initiated a search, and we did 59 square miles around the residence.
All looking for Glenn.
Yes.
Glenn's truck appeared to be abandoned in his driveway, and he missed this very important settlement hearing where he was going to soon benefit from the sale of those properties. But because his body's never been found, the police haven't been able to definitively say he's been murdered. Why don't we start with all the arguments on why you could say he really is just missing?
He's done it before when he took his daughter and went to Arizona.
In 1976, Glenn was caught up in a custody battle with his ex-wife. Fearing he would lose custody, he fled to Arizona with his daughter, where he hid from his ex-wife for 5 years before being discovered. He then agreed to return home, and he gave up custody. You can go missing for a week, but for 5 years is a long time. Anything else, guys?
The father had a large collection of coins that he kept in several safes.
Glenn's father, George, owned a gold coin collection. And in the months around George's death, those coins mysteriously disappeared. One rumor around town was that Glenn may have stolen them. How much money are we thinking he's...
Around $1 million.
Okay. It's possible Glenn stole his father's coins and skipped town. But there's also a world of suspects the investigators believe may have killed Glenn over money, including his own brother, Dale Penny. All right, let's start with the broadest picture of the relationship between Dale and Glenn.
Long-standing animosity. Along with the gold coins, there were 6 properties that Glenn and Dale's father owned in Oakland, California, that were set to be sold beginning at the hearing on October 6th that Glenn didn't show up for. The proceeds from the sale were to be divided between the 2 brothers.
We have a court setting to sell the first of 6 properties. The property in dispute was how much?
It was $330,000.
I'm thinking he thinks if Glenn doesn't show up, it all goes to him because he's there.
Next up will be Susan.
Susan is Dale's common law wife.
She had sold $31,000 in coins, and we got the casino records that show she's plugging in tons of cash. At the same time she's selling these coins, we start to ask her about that, and that's when she asked for a lawyer.
All right. It seems like Susan supported her gambling habit selling gold coins, and we're investigating missing coins as the possible motive for Glenn's murder. We definitely have to take a long, hard look at Susan. Let's go to Dean Penny. He's the son of...
Dale.
He made a comment that he and Susan kidnapped Glenn, tortured and killed him in a bus buried on the property.
And what finally happened with all these comments?
He recanted every one of them.
Dean was allegedly under the influence of drugs and alcohol when he made his incriminating statements and recanted them shortly thereafter. But the question remains, was he drunk and talking crazy, or was he drunk and confessing? Okay, still in the family, we have Bob McPherson, Dale and Glenn's half-brother.
He's got prior history. He's convicted of murder.
His motive, money. Bob knew that Glenn had the safe that had gold and silver in it.
That's why you're talking to him again. Now finally moving outside the family.
Yeah, and this is all back to the theory that Dale had to hire someone to do this for him.
Yes.
After the police reviewed Dale's phone records, 3 more suspects landed on the radar as possible accomplices, based on conversations Dale had with them on the day of and the day after Glenn's disappearance.
We have Daddy Holland and Son Holland.
Very isolationist type.
Other than cell phone calls, we don't have anything else.
Right.
All right. And finally, Gary Corbett. He's the private eye that Dale hired to spy on Glenn.
When I talked to him, he was living on a compound outside of Coos Bay in a treehouse.
Do y'all have any normal people in this case?
No.
This is a unique and complex case, and we're going to need to approach it a little differently. The missing gold coins are a potential motive if Glenn went missing, but they're also a potential motive for if he was murdered. And we have 7 suspects that could be involved. But they could also be witnesses if they can provide any new information about Glenn or even about each other. For this case, we need to investigate every possibility at the same time. 7 suspects? A lot.
This week, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For these words, he won't come around here.
When's the last time y'all talked to Christy?
Last week.
Looking into everything again, she was
Yeah.
good with it?
Yeah.
She wants some kind of closure. The not knowing is really the hard part in missing person cases.
When you talk to the family of a missing person, you have to balance the realities of the case with their hope that their loved one might still come home. Christy's been living with the reality of this for 13 years, and she deserves to have some answers. Talk about your dad and your childhood.
Let's see, we got to Arizona when I was 6. It was really close to the Mexican border, so my dad and I would go into Mexico like every other weekend. My dad loved doing road trips. He had a Goldwing motorcycle, so we would travel all over the state. And
Just hop on the motorcycle with him?
Yeah.
All of this that's been going on for so long with all these questions and hopes and worries, how have you dealt with that all this time?
I think the hardest part for me is that my son and my dad were robbed of that relationship. My son is so much like my dad, and he could have learned so much from him. And so when I think about that, you know, it makes me sad. It's extremely important to me to find out what happened to my father. It's something that rests heavy on my heart.
Was there ever a conversation you had with your dad where he talked to you about Uncle Dale and your grandfather's estate?
My dad would frequently tell me, Dale's trying to get your grandpa's estate for me. He's trying to take everything. It was a lot of stress on him. He was incredibly depressed.
Some people could turn that into the argument of he's just missing and he left. Is that how you're hearing it?
No.
Okay.
Because I believe he was genuinely fearful someone was coming after him.
Okay. It may seem odd that Glenn would leave his daughter and grandson, but at this point, we can't rule that out. We need to find the truth. We're on our way to Glenn Penny's house, his last known location when he disappeared in 2004.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Kind of wet, but other than that,
We don't know if he skipped town or if he was murdered, but looking at the scene might help us figure out the mystery.
This is the access I went into initially, and the entire house was packed to the ceilings. Anything and everything, all kinds of papers and magazines and computer parts, but there was things that were neatly stacked in piles, so if there was any kind of struggle, stuff would have fallen down easily.
If the attack didn't happen in Glenn's home, it most likely occurred in the backyard, where police believe he was packing his truck that night for his trip to California.
So the truck was backed in right about here. The canopy was unlocked, and it was packed for a trip. I mean, he had his logbook, his laptop, snacks, and then from the driveway to the back access to the house, there was a pathway.
And this is all still dark.
Oh, at nighttime, there's nothing out here but the stars and the moon. There's no indication of any kind of struggle.
and that truck was examined. There was no struggle on the outside. There's no fingerprints. There's no blood.
No, they did a whole processing of the entire vehicle.
This is a real mystery. If Glenn voluntarily left, why didn't he leave in his packed truck?
You want to play out a scenario as to what you always have thought happened?
My thought has always been that Glenn was packing his vehicle when somebody contacted him. We've always suspected that somebody got him either by gunpoint or convincing him to go with them.
But then you're going to have to secure him if you're going to drive him off.
Why can't you just say get in the truck and drive and hold your gun at him while you're driving just a little ways?
It's a little chancy, but certainly possible.
If someone Glenn knew and trusted didn't convince him to willingly enter a vehicle, there's two possible theories at play here, but both raise questions. Glenn's killer might have used a weapon to get him into his vehicle, but then Glenn would have had an opportunity to fight back. The other theory is that Glenn could have been knocked out with some sort of a blunt object, but there's no sign of a struggle. We found no blood. We really can't say either one for sure.
This is a great whodunit, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Sherlock Holmes here.
So here we are in beautiful sunny California. Thought we were leaving Oregon. We brought it with us.
It's a little disappointing that we weren't able to figure out more at Glenn Penny's house. The cold cases are rarely solved with physical evidence alone. Right now, we need to get a clearer understanding of the biggest issue at the center of this case, Glenn's father's estate.
So 42nd Street's going to be right up here, 2 blocks up, and that's where all 6 of these properties are supposed to be at.
Glenn's father, George, owned 6 properties that Glenn and his brother Dale fought over like crazy after their dad's death. Each of those 6 properties was worth a lot of money.
I'll tell you what, this neighborhood's a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
expecting it to
it
be all
is.
run down and tore up.
He owned which ones?
1, 2, 3, 4, the big blue house, and then
This
the
one,
next
this one? We know Glenn had his name added to the deeds before his father's death, ensuring that he would get 75% of the value, while Dale only got 25%. That is the reason that Dale planned to oppose the property sale at the hearing that Glenn never showed up for.
George lived in this big 2-story blue house that's behind this white picket fence. He had a total of 8 safes. One of the safes was said to be on the floor and have a board on top of it and a washing machine on top of that.
So you had to move a washing machine to get to one of the safes?
Yes.
After their father died, the estate was inventoried for value, and when their father's safes were opened, they were all empty.
Going off of witness statements, Glenn and Dale come to the properties and load up vehicles and drive off.
Okay. What's so telling to me is how much Dale really acted like Glenn stole it, and then how much Glenn really said Dale stole it. Who the hell took the money? There's no question Dale and Glenn were motivated by greed, and it makes you realize that in this case, that money ruined this family. Now it's time for us to start talking to people. And figuring out what happened to those gold coins could be a critical piece of the puzzle, since they could have allowed Glenn to skip town or could have been the motive for any of our 7 suspects. The man who might know the most about them is Gary Corbett, the private eye that Dale hired to find out if Glenn was stealing them. Gary Corbett, he's all over the phone records in unusual places and times. The tricky thing is Gary is one of our suspects, since he knew about the coins and made some oddly timed phone calls to Dale the day of and the day after Glenn disappeared. So while we would like to normally wait to talk to suspects, Gary really could be a key witness.
When Dale first contacted you, did he say why he wanted you to do some surveillance on Glenn?
Yeah, he got a hold of me right after his dad had died, and he said, I want you to go to my father's house down in Oakland and see if you can see some safes there.
Because he's hoping the safes had the coins in them.
Right. The safes weren't there when I was there the first time, and when I went back a second time, they were there.
Empty.
Yeah.
And you didn't see any coins.
Mm-hmm. But let me back up a little bit. Before Glenn and Dale's dad died, Dale wanted to do a new will up for his dad. And so I drew up a will for him. But nothing got signed, and then his dad died. I wrote that will, and he was going to try to present that to the court. And I looked at him and I said, you can't do that.
During the probate process, Dale presented a will in court to amend the split he and Glenn were sharing on the sale of their father's property. But the court ruled that it was fraudulently signed and dismissed it.
He's got you looking for Glenn and the coins. He's tried the fake will. That didn't work.
Yeah.
Did he ever talk to you about maybe another plan?
No, because I told him that he was in over his head and that he needed an attorney.
Okay, so I want to show you something. October 3rd, October the 4th. These are the phone records that we know about. Look who he's calling. He's calling you. The first thing that'll help us know that it's not you, if you could tell us what he said in these phone calls, that would be key.
It had to be something that we were working on. The house was being sold, the first one. He could have been asking me what I could do to stop it. But I can't, for the life of me, now I can see him calling Holland.
Why?
Because they were really good friends.
Is Bill Holland the kind of creepy, sketchy guy that would do something like this?
I have no idea. I've never met him.
Because, you know, some people say you are.
That I am?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one. If you want me to continue being friendly, you should back off a bit, because I'm not guilty of anything, and I am not involved in this in any way, shape, or form.
Gary doesn't know where the coins are, but he seems pretty upfront and cooperative and righteously upset that he's still involved in this case.
I know what I did and what I didn't do. Unfortunately, I can't say all that for Dale.
We're investigating whether Glenn Penny went missing back in 2004 or was murdered. Former PI Gary Corbett doesn't seem like a strong suspect, but we know that Dale also talked with father and son gunsmiths, William and Darrell Holland, around that time. Then again, kind of like Gary, the Hollands could be witnesses depending on what they can tell us about Dale. First up, we're going to start with William.
He's the mayor.
Oh, God. Is that true?
Yeah, Mayor Powers.
Maybe he can replace Trump for somebody here, too.
Hi, Mr. Holland. How are you?
People in suits don't come see me very often.
We're looking into the missing person case on Dale Penny's brother. Did he talk to you at all before going down for that hearing? There are phone calls to your home phone from Dale and then from Sue Billings' cell phone, both the day before and the days immediately following, right after his brother went missing.
I cannot answer that with any accuracy. Okay. I'll say this. Dale probably talked to me every time he was going down there. He would go into a auto part thing there, and I got 2 or 3 old Mercedes here, and I was always, hey, check out of this or that. So yeah, just because Dale called me, purely a coincidence.
So, okay, that makes sense.
You know, the cops came down here and they accused us all but of killing the guy or of being an accessory and all kinds of stupid things. Full of it.
Okay.
No, Dale didn't call up and said, oh, I need help carrying a body out of town. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But
Great.
I can help.
Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
William's explanation for the calls between him and Dale seemed reasonable, but we still need to clear things up with his son, Darrell.
We're going to go hit Darrell.
Darrell Holland didn't want to come out to the truck to talk to us, but he was cooperative. The reason he gave for the phone calls were that Dale's common-law wife, Susan, was working for him at the time, and they make sense, and they spoke frequently.
He ain't a bad guy. I mean...
No, he's not. Actually, completely different than what I remember from 04.
The next potential lead in this case is Dean Penny. He's made incriminating statements in the past, but later recanted them, even when offered a deal to reduce the prison sentence he's currently serving for an unrelated crime.
Hello, Dean Penny? This is Sergeant Holsapple with Polk County. How are you today?
What's up, you punk?
Hey, calm down.
Bitch, dude.
Hey, Dean. Dean, my name is Steve. I'm working with the Polk County Sheriff's Department. Can I just talk to you for a minute? Calm down here.
What the do you want, bitch? You guys know I had nothing to do with it, dude.
Okay, I honestly believe you. Can you just answer a couple of questions and help me, point me in the right direction, and maybe I can help you?
I want my lawyer present.
Dean asked for a lawyer, which ends this interview. This was an opportunity for Dean to help himself. However, my experience has taught me that not everybody's willing to talk to the police and cooperate with them.
All right, Dean. Take care.
It's time for us to take a step back and try and get a better picture of Glenn's world.
Have a seat in the front. I got a couple real nice ladies in there.
Yeah. Hi there. How are you doing? We're going to start with his friends to see if any of them can shed a better light on his relationship with Dale and the possibility that he simply left town.
Was there any speculation that Glenn just took off on his own?
No. I think he was comfortable in his life here.
I can't imagine in my own mind Glenn just picking up and running away. Sounded like he loved his cat.
Did Glenn ever come talk to you about how things were going with him right before he went missing?
They were fighting, like feuding over the estate, I guess.
He, at that time, was saying that his brother did not want him to have this money and that his brother had told him that he'd see him, pushing up daisies before he'd get that money.
Glenn was really scared. He was afraid of his brother. In my heart, I believe he was scared for his life.
It seems like Glenn told everybody he knew how afraid he was of Dale. Considering the animosity between the two brothers and the amount of money they were fighting over from their father's estate, it's possible Glenn's fears were justified.
Gabriel, he's the one that is an eyewitness to what was in those safes.
The Ponces were neighbors of Glenn and Dale's father, George. Does it say Ponces? They ought to know about Glenn and Dale's relationship and also about the gold coin collection that mysteriously vanished around George's death. What was George like?
Well, he was a likable guy.
You remember him ever talking about a coin collection?
Oh, yeah. He had a lot of coins. He had a big two-door safe, and he would open that safe and I actually get sick. All of that money.
We heard that the coins could have been worth about $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
Did any of his sons take coins when...
Oh, yeah.
Which one?
Glenn was real good at stealing coins from his dad.
When Glenn went missing in October of 2004, did y'all ever talk after that?
Well, we did, but I can't remember what it was, but Glenn headed for Mexico.
Why do you say that?
After the property was sold, he told us he was headed for Mexico.
So he was going to sell the properties and then go to Mexico?
Yeah.
Go take a vacation in Mexico or stay there?
To live over there.
Now that's interesting. This is the first witness to think that Glenn had plans to leave. But according to Mr. Ponce, Glenn was planning to leave after his father's properties were sold. And we know that Glenn disappeared 2 days prior to the property settlement hearing. So was Glenn so scared he changed his mind, or were his plans cut short by somebody else? You have Glenn walking around telling too many people, if anything happens to me, look at Dale. It's freaking weird. Glenn told his friends he was scared of Dale, told the Ponces he was going to Mexico. It makes you wonder if Glenn devised a plan to implicate his brother and then secretly skip town with those coins. Whether Glenn Penny went missing or was murdered, we believe the case revolves around the gold coins and the money from Glenn and Dale's father's properties. Glenn could have stolen the gold coins and skipped town, but why in the world would he have forfeited all the money he could have made off of selling those properties and left it for his brother? Does he sit here? Yeah, right here, pull in here. We know that Glenn skipped town before when he hid out for 5 years in Arizona with his 7-year-old daughter, Christy. Glenn's ex-wife and Christy's mom, Charlene, should help us be able to better understand the possibility he did it again. It's a mess, huh?
It is a mess, and I feel for Christy.
Why did he take her?
He convinced her that he took her for her own best interest. When I finally found her in Arizona, it was like a shock, because she thought I was dead for years. I mean, it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
You know Glenn better than anybody that we could talk to knows Glenn probably. Would he have ever walked away from the money that property would have given him?
No. He would not have hid out. He would not have vanished. He would not have. Oh, no.
Why do you say that?
He was way too greedy. He was way too greedy. He wouldn't have left $5 on the table.
According to Charlene, Glenn would have never walked away from the money he was about to receive from selling those properties. Money that in his absence went to his daughter, Christy.
After Glenn disappeared, Dale called me up. He just assumed that once his brother was gone, he would inherit the entire estate because he was the surviving sibling. Once he found out Christy actually had a right to that, he was pissed. He was basically thinking he was walking away with everything.
If Dale believed that all the money was going to go to him if Glenn didn't show up for the settlement hearing on October the 6th, that could definitely give Dale the motivation to want Glenn out of the picture. Hey, Mike, we just got through talking to Charlene.
She said that Glenn would have never walked away from $5.
Now that we know how greedy Glenn was, it's clear that he would have never left town and left behind the money he was going to get from selling those properties.
There was so much money that it made no sense at all for him to walk away from.
Not to mention Glenn's bank accounts and investments have never been touched since the day he disappeared. And it seems he cared too much about his daughter and grandson to ever abandon them. So are we all in agreement we can take missing off the board?
Yeah.
He's not missing.
Glenn may have been planning to flee to Mexico, but it's clearer than ever he never made it. He was murdered. Now we need to figure out who's responsible, which means we need to start tracking down the rest of our suspects.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate that.
Bob McPherson, Glenn's half-brother, knew about Glenn possibly having those gold coins. But more importantly, we know that Bob is capable of murder. He was convicted of murder after killing a man after a car accident. We need to figure out if he could murder his own brother.
Can you give him the story you told me about California and how you ended up in on that?
On the murder beef? Yeah. And this guy came into contact.
How'd you come in contact with him?
Wreck.
You got in a car wreck?
Yeah, going across the intersection. Bam. So what the I've only been out 3 months, I think. I had some stuff.
Drugs?
Yeah. And it wasn't my drugs. That's the bad part about the whole thing. We had a little confrontation, me and this guy. So I popped him. Not there, but I took him up and he popped him, killed him. He damn sure didn't deserve what I did. You know what I mean? But I wasn't going to go back to jail at that particular moment.
That sounds kind of cold.
So convince me you didn't kill your brother.
My brother, number one. No gain, number two. Number three is, hell, everybody look at me anyway because I've done it before, but not my brother. Glenn and me was fine. Other people didn't like Glenn. Glenn was smarter than about a lot of things, but dumber than when it comes to people. But we used to go fishing together and stuff like that. Glenn was a much better person than Dale. I had no animosity whatsoever towards Glenn. None.
So where are the coins?
That's a good question.
Great question.
That's a good question.
Bob's in the family and one of the closest people to Glenn, and even he doesn't know where the gold coins are. It's likely they'll never be found. But if Bob didn't think that Glenn had coins to steal, Bob had no reason to kill him.
Don't waste your time on I didn't do it. You know, well, everybody said when that old man dies, only one of them boys is going to survive.
Damn. Bob, like many of our witnesses, was quick to point out the animosity between Dale and Glenn, but didn't have any evidence that Dale murdered him. We've tracked down one of Dale's oldest friends who knew him as well as anybody to see if he can add anything new to the case. When y'all were little growing up, how familiar would Dale be with, the countryside?
He's very familiar.
Do you have any doubt that Dale could get rid of a body if he wanted to, if he did this?
Oh, yeah.
Let's say Dale shows up at Glenn's house, middle of the night. You think Dale would be crafty enough to figure out a way to subdue him?
When we both used ether, when we were kids, we'd trap skunks.
You're talking about you and Dale?
Yeah.
Ether is a chemical that's been used since the 1800s as an anesthetic. It's powerful enough where a few deep inhalations will render not just an animal, but a human unconscious. So you think Dale could sneak up on Glenn with ether like in a rag and knock him out that way?
Or something else. I mean, Dale was phenomenal in chemistry.
You sure know a lot about Dale. I'm glad we found you. If Dale is the one who snuck up on Glenn, his familiarity with ether could explain why there's nothing disturbed at the scene. Whoa, ether. Ether. Nice. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Did y'all have any luck today? We've spoken with all the witnesses and just about all the suspects, and it's time to review everything we've learned and all the evidence we've uncovered. Looking at our 7 suspects, Darrell Holland the son and William Holland the father. The reason the Hollands were in our world in the first place was because of the phone calls, and after y'all interviewed them and they explained it all to you, that y'all feel good about taking them off the board.
Yes.
And didn't y'all say that they seemed a whole lot more cooperative this time?
Yes.
Okay. How about Dean Penny?
He had 3 chances for not going to prison. If you can just tell us what happened with Glenn.
I don't think he had any information to provide.
The incriminating statements that Dean made over the years were inconsistent and made while he was intoxicated. And the fact that he has always refused to take advantage of any deal for reduced prison time for more information suggests he doesn't have any. All right, Gary Corbett.
He seemed pretty honest with us.
That's what I thought.
He explained these phone calls.
Gary Corbett comes off the suspect board. What'd you think of Bob, Steve?
He's the only one that's been close to Glenn throughout the years.
To me, that was huge.
Nothing but cooperate
Yes.
this entire investigation. I say take him off the board.
With everything we've learned this week, we are left with 2 suspects, Susan Billings and Dale Penny. Glenn always said, if anything happens to me, it's Dale.
His brother told him that he'd see him pushing up daisies before he'd get that money.
The way Glenn really did screw Dale with Father's estate and the coins.
Oh, yeah. Glenn was really good at stealing coins from his dad.
You have the trigger and the timing very, very clear with that Wednesday, October the 6th hearing date.
Dale assumed that once his brother was gone, he would inherit the entire estate.
You have motive 1,000 times over, but you can't say for sure what was happening in this house. You got to get over that hurdle.
We just don't have that one piece of linking evidence that's going to put him directly related to this crime.
We can lay out a beautiful story on the escalating tensions between Dale and Glenn and why all that came to a boil on October the 4th. The thing is, if Dale did kill Glenn right now, we don't have enough to prove it. It's time to talk to our remaining suspects, Susan Billings and Dale Penny. Susan has been in the middle of this investigation from the very beginning, not just because she's Dale's common-law wife.
Here she comes.
But because she cashed in a large amount of coins after Glenn's disappearance.
Stay.
He wants to come, huh?
This is a county-owned vehicle, dog. You better knock it off. Hey!
Should by the leash.
Do you remember the night that Glenn basically went missing?
It would have been
Sunday night.
Well, I can tell you what a typical Sunday night would have been. We would have probably sat around and watched television.
How much do you think you gambled in that year?
In that year?
Yeah.
Probably close to 14.
Okay.
There's a report that you cashed in a little over $31,000 worth of coins.
Yeah, so?
We're just at, where'd the coins come from? They were your coins?
Yes, they were my coins, or I wouldn't have been cashing. Dog, get down.
Susan, let me ask you bluntly here. Did you have anything to do with Glenn's disappearance?
No.
Would you protect Dale if he hurt Glenn?
Absolutely not.
It never occurred to you that he may have had something to do with this?
No, Dale is not that type of a person. Doesn't have the cojones.
Susan answered our questions, but at this point, we're not able to eliminate her as a suspect.
Are you gonna take your puppy away? Thank you.
So when Dale comes in today, you started off, and I'm going to be the irritating one in the room that says to Dale, hey, back to the question.
You will get frustrated quick and easy. He's a hothead when he gets frustrated.
There's no question that Dale was angry at Glenn and wanted the money from their father's estate, and he even forged a will to try and get it. But if we're going to prove he would go as far as killing his brother for it, we're going to need him to give us something huge.
All right, Dale, go ahead and have a seat here. This is Kelly. Kelly's going to be helping me out.
You, sir.
So what do you think happened to Glenn?
You really want to know?
I really want to know. What's your theory?
There's two theories now. Somebody wanted to stop him so he couldn't get the money.
Absolutely.
Who?
Who do you think did profit from all this?
Who?
Christine.
You think Christine is the one who took care of her dad?
Yes. With his 54 Ford.
I don't know.
Well, maybe Glenn drove off in the 54 Ford. I'm just telling you, that Ford was his baby.
I mean, you're throwing a bunch of stuff out there. The problem is the stuff you're throwing out there, not a lot of it has much foundation, does it?
Good, because you don't know what's really caused it.
When you try to pin him down to a specific, he wants to bring up some other vague, unrelated thing to get you off of that topic. And conspiracy theories to muddy the waters. We need to pin him down to answer the questions that are asked of him. You thought it would have all gone to you.
No, baloney.
In your head, that's what you thought.
That's what you thought back then. You weren't trying to screw your brother
you
like he was
shut
trying to
up?
No, sir, I won't. It's all about money in your family, darling. You know that better than we do.
It's not all about money with me.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
You're so full of it, lady.
You faked a will and probate.
Bullshit.
Gary Corbett told us he typed up the will, and then it got busted wide open in court because it wasn't witnessed.
That's exactly what happened.
Gary is full of shit. Just trying to build a goddamn case that you haven't got.
No, we're trying to figure out what happened based on what everyone else has told us that you're
And you're
denying.
believing everybody but me.
Some of what you say we believe, but we're telling
just
you.
some of it.
Yes, sir, because
How can you believe any of it if you keep calling me a goddamn liar?
Then don't lie.
I'm not lying.
You are about the will. If he thinks that his yelling and his cussing is going to intimidate anybody, he's wrong. Maybe it works in other scenarios, but it's not going to matter today. We're trying to ask you specific questions about things that we know are true.
Yeah, and you're goddamn bringing up
When we
it isn't
no,
true.
What
This is
happens
what's
when
in
we
the
ask
file.
you
We
for
didn't make this up.
That's what you want to believe, do it? Well, arrest me right now and haul me in. That's what you want to believe, do it? Well, arrest me right now and haul me in.
I'm not arresting you.
No, you can't, because I didn't do it. I didn't have anything to do with the son of a bitch.
Our interrogation of Dale Penny is not going well. From my experience, you run into some suspects like Dale Penny who can talk and talk and talk for days but never tell you anything.
All I was trying to do was to make happen what our father wanted to happen when he was gone.
Right, and Glenn would not do that.
Right, but killing him would not make that happen.
Thank you for coming down here today. We appreciate your answering all of our questions.
Okay.
I believe Dale when he talks about how he was screwed, but when he talks about things that you know is lying about, he is just as believable. So you don't know what to do with someone like that.
No matter how many times we open it up and how many different directions we take the investigation, it always ends up right back at the same place.
It's just frustrating because in most cold cases you have suspects that have said something over the past 12 years and he really hasn't. It's been a tough week interviewing a whole lot of suspects. We didn't get any of the breaks we hoped for. There is not enough evidence, unfortunately, right now to present this case to a prosecutor. Are they always here?
Yeah, this whole area is an elk preserve. See the big racks there and there?
Yeah.
This is one of the most frustrating cases I've ever worked, but I'm not a quitter.
We needed some luck and it didn't happen, but that doesn't mean it won't.
Yeah?
I don't know if people appreciate how hard it is for cops to admit they need help. And so when we come, the pressure is more intense. And if we don't solve it, you feel like you're letting everybody down. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's frustrating.
So we've been a long way this last week and a half. We've solid up some information about relationships. We've narrowed it down, but we just don't have enough evidence to charge anything.
We're sorry.
That's going to stay an open case. That's our goal, is to find out what happened to your dad.
I appreciate all your hard work.
But we can all tell you that based on everything that we found out, your dad's not out there missing and ignoring you. He's gone.
I know that.
Do you have any questions for us?
There's still potential here. I'm not telling you there's not hope.
Yeah. It's my dad. I'm his only child. I'll never give up hope.
I'm sorry. It's hard to face Christy and not be able to give her the answer she's been waiting for so long. You hang in there.
Thank
We will stay in touch, okay?
But hopefully, knowing that her dad loved her and he would have never just left her will give her a sense of peace. For more cold justice, go to oxygen.com.